I'm very, very pleased to moderate this panel with our industry experts. We have 4 incredible experts and analysts. And so what I'm going to get to do with this session, because normally what we do is we have a customer panel, but we're going to get to turn the tables around a little bit and ask some of the questions of those experts covering their specific trades. So let's bring out the panelists and let's get started. So please, come on out. Wonderful. How you guys doing, okay?
Great, thank you.
Good.
Thank you.
Why don't we get started, and would you please introduce yourselves and your name and publication, and we'll get started with the questions.
Sure. I'm Adrienne Palmer. I am the editor-in-chief of Big Picture magazine, as well as Screen Printing magazine. Big Picture focuses on the wide format space, and Screen Printing focuses on screen printing. I've been with Big Picture for 9 years and Screen Printing for 3, and happy to be here.
Fabulous.
I'm also happy to be here. My name is Morten Reitoft. I am from Denmark, so I apologize for my accent. I am the editor-in-chief of English TV and English News, and we try to cover more the business perspectives of the industry in as many aspects and segments as possible. So that's what we do.
Great.
Hi, I'm Linda Casey. I just joined APCO Media a few months ago as editor-in-chief of Packaging Impressions, and this year I am taking on a bigger role with their Brand United website. I have a huge branding, marketing background. I used to be the chief editor for Brand Experience magazine, and even go back all the way to the days of high volume printing, converting, and many other industry pubs.
Hello, I'm Tim Green. I'm a research director at IDC. IDC is one of the top market research and consulting companies in the world. My service covers large format printing, 3D printing, and really anything that's about production industrial inkjet.
Excellent. So let's get started. So my first question for the 4 of you is, so looking back in 2021, what were the top 2, 3 takeaways for the year in each of your industries? So Tim, let's start with you.
Me?
Tim, we'll start with Tim.
Yeah, so thanks, Frank. We do a lot of end user and primary research, of course, right? And, you know, what we found is in more and more cases, print service providers just looking for new opportunities, right? What new things can they add? What new kind of services, whether it's, you know, it could be anything. It could be t-shirt printing or 3D printing or large format. If they're in large format, they're looking maybe narrow format or label printing or t-shirts. If they're not, then it's large format is very often one of the things they're looking for. So, you know, IDC is a research firm, and we try to provide answers and numbers. So we try to, you know, size up opportunities like that, and then help people say, you know, here's how you enter these businesses. Here's some of the things you need to know, and that's really, I think that's probably the overriding thing for 2020 and 2021 has been like, how do today's print service providers adapt? How do they add to their business? How do they evolve, you know, to meet today's market challenges?
That's great. And Linda?
Well, I would say that the first thing that was really big for brands, the customers, the people that buy printed packages, was that they saw that just-in-time has a lot of flaws. So just-in-time manufacturing, that kind of doctrine just kind of crumbled as we saw that the supply chain all around had huge problems. We saw the need for greater warehousing, definitely have a need for change, but at the same time having that same flexibility within the manufacturing processes as they needed to adjust what products they were selling quickly. So I would definitely say that the way that brands, consumer packaged brands, looked at printed packaging changed because they were looking at the complete supply chain and how they can build more inventory. Inventory stopped becoming a dirty word last year. Inventory became something that was coveted. So that was an absolutely huge change. Another change I would say for the brands that were not consumer packaged goods companies, that were just consumer facing brands, such as bars, restaurants, hotels, was trying to figure out how to capture and deliver that experience in a way that didn't require the consumer or the customer to be there. So rethinking what they were as a brand, their brand identity, their brand persona, and the brand promise were absolutely, absolutely huge. I would also say for the printers who are servicing these brands that, definitely seeing that they had to be that supplier that could be counted on when all the other suppliers were falling through became extremely important. So the suppliers really understood that they needed to be the ones that could always be counted on.
Oh, excellent. Martin?
When I tried to prepare a little bit for this session, I took two approaches to that question. And the first was like, what kind of content on Inkish was the most popular in 21, or maybe not popular, but most read, most seen? And one of the things, and a big surprise to many people in the industry, was the failed mergers and acquisition with Gallus, Heidelberg Narrowweb, to the Swiss packaging company Benpack. Just for two reasons: because it was a huge failure, 120 million euros failure. That is, of course, something that has a huge impact on the industry. And secondly, when you have such big numbers, you would have thought that it could not go wrong in that sense, right? Mm-hmm. So that has, I think we're a small media compared to the rest of you, but we have more than 30,000 people read those articles and saw those films, and has been a game-changing point for us as a media, to be honest, because it was like a business perspective, like not so many trade media do in that perspective. So that was like one of the takeaways that I believe is important. The second one I want to talk about is that, when the COVID hit the market in 20, I think it kind of paralyzed everybody, because what to expect, what happened, I think it was, a little bit stressful for a lot of people. Yes. So the takeaway when I think about 21 is that COVID maybe changed the fact a little bit to become something that is really kick-started a lot of innovation, because we have to rethink how we communicate, we have to rethink how we do business, how we do events, how we do everything, maybe even when we release products, how we release products in the future. And I think that is, even in the post-COVID situation, post-COVID time, it will change things forever, basically. I don't think we will come back to the time before COVID without being impacted. And I think 21, in the positive word, was like a game changer from that perspective.
Absolutely. And Adrian?
Yeah, I kind of want to back up on the resilience. That's what I think about a lot, especially in the wide format industry. If you made it through 2020, you probably came out stronger, albeit maybe a little bit leaner, but you really came out strong. And I was talking to a lot of my board members and people in the industry, and they felt like I don't want to brag, but I had the best year yet. They were so happy to see their ROI and the applications that they were able to offer. And they were also able to kind of take that downtime to work on marketing plans and production issues and work with a smaller team, which is needed at this time. So I really felt like there was resilience within the industry and was really happy to see that. I also saw a lot of collaboration. A lot of print service providers were working with each other, whether that was with a merger or a partnership. I got off the phone this morning with two of the biggest print service providers in America this morning, and news will break probably a little bit later on bigpicturemag.com or tomorrow, so stay tuned for that. I can't share it just a second, but you'll be very surprised to see that these two print service providers are working together. So we're seeing a lot of that, and even on a smaller scale, I know that my editorial advisory board, they were just sending emails back and forth to each other. Do you have these materials? Or, I'm working with a client that's in your area, can you help me out? So collaboration and resilience, I would say, are the key takeaways.
Thank you, I love it, great perspective. I'm going to take this next question and direct it to you, Morton. So Inkish speaks with many different vendors and print businesses about technology, and a lot ends up being about automation and the need to do things quicker with fewer touches. Looking at the printing companies, what are the biggest automation challenges you think they're looking to solve?
First of all, it's a very good question. It's a question almost impossible to answer in a short way. So bear with me, I will give you a little. We talk about digital transformation as part of all the things we talk about here. And one of the things I have realized talking to many, many different printing companies in different countries is the fact that digital transformation, we see it as something that drives technology into all our processes. But sometimes it seems that we forget a little bit that there's a lot of people in our companies that needs to get into that mindset in order to fully utilize the value of the digital transformation and also the workflow automation potential, basically, right? And I think that is something that we, to some extent, forget, because if we look at the labor force, as Jeff Jacobson also mentioned in his keynote, there is a labor shortage. So we don't really get rid of people because they are old or unskilled or not capable of adapting to the new digital mindset. So there's a learning time ahead of us. There's a huge effort for the printing companies and converters to make sure that staff starts to understand the value and don't see it just as something where they might lose their jobs because they are getting abandoned in that perspective. And it's kind of funny because if you extend that mindset just a second, it's like I think we're moving as a society, we're moving from an industrialized society into becoming digital nomads. And when we look at that, we talk to our customers that they should do personalization, individualization, the production of one. But at the same time, all our measures, when we look at our measures, is always like, okay, conversion rates, when it's talk marketing. So in one way, we talk to our customers about the advantages of one. And in all the measures we do, we still have an industrialized mindset in evaluating all we do in that thing. And I couldn't help think about that. Maybe the more important measures is customer acquisition cost. Maybe it's more important how to create loyalty among your customers, because acquisition cost can be way higher in the future. Mm-hmm. And all those things. And you can say, what does that relate to in your question about workflow automation and how you see that? But I think it's extremely relevant to think of. And I think that maybe we as media, maybe the industry as well, have forgotten that the human factor of making the digital mindset apparent for all types of workforce people is simply something we need to address in somehow, right? And I think, just to extend shortly on that, is also that when we want to attract young people to the industry, some of the young people, they live in the digital mindset. Mm-hmm. So if they come into a company where there is no understanding of how this works, it can actually create these tensions that makes it difficult to make our industry attractive for these young people. And then last thing, I promise this will be the last thing, and that is that if you look at workflow automation in general terms, and I think in particular also in relation to e-productivity software, I think that every business, whatever kind of business, we need to focus on profitability and we need to focus on being efficient in order to get that profit. But I think it's also very important to take out maybe one or two of the pain stakes in printing companies. And I don't know about you guys here, but I think one of the things we have to change is that selling prices are based on cost prices. because I think we have to, everybody, including EPS that produces costing software, needs to differentiate way more than in the past the difference between costing models and sales prices. Because that is something that if we don't do that, we end up that the more efficient we become, the more we give away of that profitability to our customers. And this industry needs to make more money in order to be relevant for both vendors and for the customers in the future, I believe.
That's excellent. And just a quick, a little follow-up. You talked about, so when you look at what you've learned from companies like eProductivity Software, EFI, and even others, what do you think that the industry suppliers, in terms of addressing those challenges, are we getting better?
If we couldn't get better, we should go home now, right? So I think it's always a matter of identifying what is important. To be honest, this is my first Connect, hopefully not the last. One of the takeaways I find extremely interesting here, and really bravo to you and your team, is that so many of the people we've been talking to appreciate having a user group, because the input the users give to your development basically make sure that you create relevant software. And I think that if I look across the vendors, a person said to me yesterday that he has been looking into, looking also at competitors, and he said basically where they fail, they might produce some of the best software in the world, but it's not relevant because it's not the needs covered by the demands from the printing companies, right? And so this formula, having user groups, giving your people input and giving them the necessary information in order to be able to create what is relevant, is maybe the best takeaway from my perspective.
Excellent, thank you. Adrian, we're always amazed at the creativity of users of display graphic devices. Can you share a few examples of unusual or innovative applications that you've seen users create out into the field? And love to compare that, because I've come across a lot of really cool applications. Love to get your perspective.
I'm sure you have. I'm not surprised. I'm always amazed at the opportunities in this industry. I always say if you can't print it, then you can wrap it. I mean, you can do anything, especially, with wide format digital print. It's amazing. But because we're in Las Vegas, I'll share a very unique project that you can see here if you want. If you go down the Strip and you go to New York, you'll see the Statue of Liberty there. And I haven't been there on this trip, so I'm not really sure what the exact graphic is, but James Swanson with Screaming Images, who's based here in Las Vegas, he has created a larger-than-life jersey, usually for the Raiders or another team here, and has printed that and installed it on the Statue of Liberty. And then during the pandemic, put a face mask on the Statue of Liberty that was printed. And so you're here, you might as well go see it. It's pretty amazing. They had to shut down the entire Strip just for the installation, the cranes. They have a video of it. It's incredible. So you're here, see that. Another thing that I never thought I would see, dog goggles and using window perf. We saw that in our Best of Wide Format Awards last year, using window perf for these dog goggles that are used to protect them from the elements, but they have all kinds of fun graphics. There was, I think, American flag and something else. So that was something that I never thought I'd see. But speaking of the Best of Wide Format Awards, those nominations are now open through March 15th. So if you're a print service provider and you want to nominate a really unique project, I'd love to see. I'm very excited to see what comes in and see our winners this year, because they're just doing amazing things.
Oh, I love it. Follow-up question. So what are you seeing in terms of soft signage? And now we're looking at hopefully the back end post-COVID, trade shows, big question mark. So do you still see growth there? And what do you think of some of the top applications?
Yeah, absolutely. Soft signage is huge. I mean, just look around. You see it everywhere printed. And the benefits are sustainability, ease of installation, ease of removability, and then shipping costs are much, much lower. So there are a ton of benefits. And yes, I mean, fingers crossed, we're here today. So trade shows, I think are in our near future. And so if you are in the trade show business and banners, soft signage is very big there. Also retail and POP. So I'll give an example. I know Pam Richards has been up here before. She's a Las Vegas-based printer, Color Gamut, and she does a ton of soft signage, and she works with a lot of retail. And so basically she sets them up for success for customers at first. She sends them the printed yardage, the printed fabric, and she sends a piece of paper with a QR code, and you scan that QR code and you watch a video of the installation. And so that's one thing for your customers. You should really be, setting them up for success, doing this, showing them how easy it is. So, or you can go out with them the first time and do it, but then say someone who works in retail, they can change out those graphics at any point, at any time, because, excuse me, it is so easy. But I will say that if you're looking to enter the soft signage market, do your research, because there's equipment that you need to purchase. So obviously a die sub machine, a sublimator, a cutting machine. You're going to need a sewing department. So it depends, especially if you're in somewhere, depending on where you are in the country, you may need humidifiers. So there are things that are upfront costs and things that you have to look toward, but it's a pretty lucrative business.
Wonderful, wonderful, exciting. So Linda, can you share some of the innovative approaches you've seen as well in the world of corrugated? And what are some of the reasons and benefits you've seen brands adopting digital corrugated?
Yeah, definitely. One of my favorite applications came from Signature Brew. So I don't know if you guys know, Signature Brew is it's a famous tourist destination punk rock bar in the UK. And so this punk rock bar couldn't do business, obviously, during COVID. So they were one of this was before Moe's, tacos in a box and everything. They were rethinking, what the heck are we gonna do? Because we can't have a punk bar with a mosh pit during COVID. It's just not gonna happen. And so, they were able to take that experience, they literally bought bottling equipment, took the beer from their kegs, and created a packaged experience for the bar fans. And so people could get the beer from their kegs. They ended up getting a heat sealer, the trail mix you would have if you were sitting at the bar, and then they bought recording equipment and pressed records with the bands. So the bands had their gigs canceled, and so they paid them to have a record made for their show, so you could attend the show at home with a vinyl record, the snack mix that you would have at the bar, the beer you would have at the bar, and they had a bonus for the customers. So if you were in London, if you were in the city, the band members would hand deliver this to you. So if you're a punk rock fan and you open your door to get your delivery, you were surprised by seeing one of your favorite musicians hand you the bar experience along with a vinyl record to listen to them perform. It was fantastic, absolutely fantastic. I think it's definitely one of the best uses of corrugated that I've seen as far as creating a corrugated shipper box to recreate an opportunity. And we sell that over and over again. The dermatology boxes that we are seeing now more often. The things that pre-COVID just didn't happen. The licensing boards, just kind of the way that drugs are regulated, even for your skin. We weren't seeing professional dermatology boxes pre-COVID. Beauty Knox Box. So Beauty Knox Box was created by a dermatologist who runs a chain of dermatology clinics, and then a nurse practitioner out of the Medical University of South Carolina. And so they created the first beauty box where you can get prescription level product to your home, and so that you wouldn't have, you could continue to have these very important products and still be able to feel great about the way you looked, which was important. We weren't seeing each other, but we were seeing each other, because instead of seeing each other in person, we are now seeing our faces blown up on monitors during COVID. So that was a huge need. So another just absolutely great application. And the third, also out of South Carolina, was taking South Carolina Aquarium, with the help of Brand Experience Magazine and their 3 agencies generously donated their services to transform the aquarium experience and the turtle rescue experience that they give to school kids. And the school kids come there, and the federal government runs a turtle rescue experience at the aquarium, and take that educational experience and give it to the kids. And at the time, they were just thinking about primarily helping the kids with this. But what the feedback was as we were developing it and the aquarium was talking to its members was, oh my gosh, thank God, because I am, trying to teach my kids and homeschool them, and it's online schooling, everything's on a screen. You're gonna give me a box where I could actually take them away from the screen and help them learn something. So there's been a lot of great innovation.
That's exciting. I have a follow-on question. So do you have any projections relative to the increase in digital printed corrugated products? And maybe over the next couple of years, because of course we're excited. The technology, obviously it's evolving. We're focusing a lot on that. Do the brands understand the value of digital? Is there more work to be done? And it's not so much you're printing it digitally, but printing it digitally creates a whole different product. Does that resonate with the brands?
Oh my gosh, that's exactly it. So what happened at the beginning of this year was that the manufacturing companies, so especially CPG, so CPGs were having supply chain problems like we all are, and so they were reducing the number of SKUs they're having at retail, and so therefore they were reducing their overall footprint in the retail landscape. That was creating a lot of unease along with these companies, even though some of them were selling out a product, like personal care goods and things like that. They knew that overall that becomes a problem. But they liked the simplified manufacturing that they had, fewer ingredients because they were producing fewer products. So many VPs of marketing and chief marketing officers were telling me, like, when you think about your coverage, and sorry I talk with my hands a little too much, when you think about your coverage, help me, because I've been charged by the board and by my CEO to create new products, but to keep the simplified packaging manufacturing line. Well, if you keep a simplified manufacturing line, but you're charged with delivering a new brand experience, that's just another way to say it's the same product in a different package.
Exactly, right.
It's, it's not, through their lens is a little different, but that's what ultimately it becomes. So digital is going to be huge with that, because it's going to help them be able to take one product and create several SKUs and create different opportunities for the consumer to enjoy it by encouraging different use. So yeah, brands do care about this, and you'll be seeing a lot more experimentation on this idea, because they like these simplified manufacturing lines, and I don't see them going away.
I love it. That's great. So Tim, we're just scratching the surface on inkjet. It started with tile, but we see new category of possibilities in building materials with flooring and other applications. What advantages do you think inkjet can bring to those markets?
Frank, inkjet and digital printing in general has had, across a number of industries that I have to cover, like I said, 3D printing and others, it has completely transformed, as you mentioned, ceramic tile, right? And potentially the same is true anywhere where there's a very inefficient supply chain, right? And right now, think about like the fashion industry is a good example. But decorative laminates is effectively the same thing, right? People sort of design, or they pick, this is what's available, and if you like it, great. If you don't like it, wait until next year where there's some new styles or fashions come out. If you want to be able to customize that at all, well, that's kind of on you, and as Adrian said, maybe you can make a wrap or something, but if you want to customize it yourself, if you want to add your logo or something to it, that's kind of on you to deal with it, right? So, as I said, we've seen this in other industries. Ceramics is a good example. Like, hearing aids, and I have to cover 3D printing. Hearing aids is a good example. 100% of hearing aids are 3D printed now, right? Wow. All of them. Dental aligners is another example. That business has gone from analog to digital like that, right? It's happening super fast. Why? Because it's, you know, I don't know if anyone here have teenagers, right? But your experience getting braces when you were a kid was that it would cost thousands and thousands of dollars, and you might have to wear them for 2 or 3 years, right?
Right.
Dental aligners work differently. It's about $80 a month, and you can solve it in about 9 months. That completely changes the whole model, right? And so the opportunity is to be much more efficient, much lower cost, to be able to, you know, we haven't really talked about this too much, but speed to market is another huge challenge everybody's dealing with across the supply chain. So if you can respond to customer demands faster, cheaper, better, inkjet and digital provides all of those opportunities and the ability to customize it to your preference on top of everything else.
That's amazing. We have an example, great example, just 5 miles away from here. We have a fairly large company that produces luxury vinyl tile. And big, they buy a lot. They buy a lot from China, and they had again some of the challenges with supply chain. And you can actually find these tiles in lumber liquidators. I happened to go on site, and we offer these products, and we talk about it. I was blown away. Where a piece of vinyl goes in on one, it's our cubic product, single pass, just like Nozomi, and out the other end was a beautiful vinyl flooring that was just off the charts, and they're changing their whole production. So think about onshoring and stimulating that onshoring. We've got it. I think that market is really ripe to explode.
Think about the potential once, you know, hopefully when we get back to doing trade shows, right? When every display, every exhibit will have, you know, your logo right on the bottom of that floor. The ability for print service providers to do that and to execute that service is there and should be there, right? So another beauty of this is it's quite scalable, right? It could be something small, or it could be something that you want to have in the lobby of every Dunkin' Donuts across the whole country or something, right? So it could be quite scalable.
It's amazing. Unfortunately, I've had the looking at renovating my apartment, and we looked at shower enclosures and a bunch. I cannot believe what you can do with those types of, and it's all digital, it's all inkjet. And again, we think that the market is really ripe to explode. Great insight. Thank you for that. So, Tim, I got another question. One of the things I like most about inkjet, again, it's its versatility. We are talking about it here in Las Vegas, and you go across the street to the event called SHOT Show, and there are companies who are using EFI Reggiani systems to move the production of hunting gear over to digital. Go in the other direction, and you've got the World of Concrete trade show. And there is an opportunity to transform much of the decoration that happens in the digital space, in the digital space to digital. But what about inkjet? What gives it that type of versatility?
To me?
Yes.
Yeah, so I think, there's 3 basically physical properties of inkjet that are hugely advantageous. The first is non-contact, right? Like the surface doesn't have to be perfect at all. In fact, it can be quite variable and still apply absolutely beautiful imagery. As you mentioned, flexibility, right? If you can literally jet an unbelievable variety of materials, and in so doing, like you can create anything from little CAD drawings up to full-scale giant models that you would 3D print using effectively the same technology, right? And then the third thing is, I would say, it's scalability, right? You can go from if you talk to somebody who's into inkjet integration, there's almost no problem you can't solve, right? You can say like, oh, we can solve streaking by adding more heads, or we can make it go faster by adding more. Like you can add heads, and boom, you end up with a big expensive machine, but you can solve any problem, right? You want to print on anything, how fast do you want to go? It really doesn't matter. It just depends on the ink formulation and how many heads you apply to and how you cure it. So it's got those 3 or 4 huge advantages. Just you can't get around them. The physical capabilities of these heads is amazing, and it keeps getting better and better and better. And as you know, like the droplet size gets smaller, and the ability to jet drops through the head per second, keeps getting faster and faster, so it just keeps getting better. And then as you apply other stuff like quality assurance cameras and things like that to make sure that there's no errors, there's no streaking, this can execute perfectly, it just gets better and better.
So we know the opportunities, just a quick follow-on. So what are the biggest challenges to moving into these new markets with inkjet? Is it education? Is it the technology barriers?
So I think it really is just like an application of the technical capabilities, and then we just got to prove it, right? Can you really do it? Can you really make, inkjet execute things that you're doing now? Just like, going back 30 years ago, people said like, oh, well, inkjet can't do what screen printing can do. Well, it certainly can. In most cases, hell of a lot of cases, it certainly can. So you have to, over time, you have to prove it and say, like, can it do everything Flexo can do? Can it do everything that you can do with a 3D printer now? The answer is, eventually, it will. It's going to. It used to be, right, whatever could be digital is going to be digital. Now it's like whatever can be inkjet is going to be inkjet because it solves so many of those challenges.
That's awesome. So exciting here, 2022, start of the year. We're at a physical event, which is exciting. So there's a light at the end of the tunnel. And I think, again, all our wheels are turning here in terms of what the future is going to look like and how we can take advantage of this coming out. So I've got a question for four of you. For your particular industry segment, what are the top 2-3 things companies should be focusing on as we go through this year? And Adrian, we'll start with you.
Just 2 or 3. I have like a
It's more.
some things. Morton, you mentioned a little bit of customization and personalization. That is huge right now, especially in the wide format market and the interior decor space. We all were stuck at home. We've talked about this all week long. Looking into that market and seeing if that's a viable option for your business. Also looking at being a one-stop shop from design to install. Your customers are wanting to come to you for everything. So if a customer or multiple customers keep coming to you asking for something and you keep saying no and you don't do any investigation to see if that's something that you can offer, they're not going to stay with you long. They're going to find your competitor and go there and then start, you'll lose that business. And so being a one-stop shop designed to install and looking at other applications like interior decor. Some bigger things moving into this year, hiring and retaining the next generation. It's really important. We've talked about labor shortage, all week, and that's something that you need to look at. Salary isn't as big of a deal for the next gen. Of course, you need to pay them a fair living wage, but they're looking at interesting benefits. So maybe unlimited PTO or family, like maternity leave, paternity leave, things like that. They're very eager to jump to the next business if it doesn't work for them. They want to be able to make decisions. They want to see that there's a growth pattern for them. So definitely look at hiring and retaining the next generation. Getting ahead of supply chain issues. I know some of them are, we can't really foresee them, but if you're out of a certain material, what's an alternative media that you can offer your customer that's going to give them the best bang for their buck and still be a quality print? Maybe give incentives to customers who are ordering ahead of time, and then really just communicating with your customers in general as well as your vendors. And then my final, I know I gave you more than 2 or 3. The final thing is really being aware of your web presence. I go on so many different websites of print service providers. I have no idea what they're doing. They don't have pictures of their installments. They don't share their services. So make sure you have a really good website moving forward into this year. Pay attention to social media. I know this is a little, but it's working. TikTok especially, people want to see behind the scenes work of what you're doing. If you are on TikTok and you gain a following, I promise you that you will gain more customers. So look at that, and this is definitely something that might be not this year, but maybe next year, hiring an influencer and working with vendors, getting people to be sponsors of this influencer. Oh, let's test out this product and see if it works. You will gain followers, which will lead to customers. So I would say those are my
Excellent.
top, I don't know how many I gave you, but more than 2 or 3.
Excellent. Morton.
I actually narrowed it down to 2.
Oh, see, you're better than that.
Maybe not as creative as you.
Yeah.
I have a quite clear understanding that 2022 will be a good year for EPS. I think that workflow automation will come to, I mean, if it was something that started with bigger operations, it will become something that is used by more and more companies, whatever size they have. And that goes everywhere from web ordering to the internal workflow. And I see also a tendency when we visit some of the packaging companies that robots, cobots, IoT, AGVs, so it's not just automation on the software side, but also automating a lot of the processes within a company is something that we see clearly now. And the funny thing about it is when you see these operations, you first think, okay, this is only for the really big guys. But if you start looking into the cost of an AGV, if you look at what a small robot costs and how much benefit you can have from it, it is for everybody right now. So this is something that I truly believe will be part of the 2022 agenda, to see how automation moves both with software, but even more also on the logistics and the hardware and that part of it. So that's very, I think, very, very important. Another thing that I believe is actually even more important is the sustainability agenda. I think that if we want to be an attractive industry to our customers, we can be sustainable. We should be sustainable. We should hand over the planet in better shape to future generations. And I think that the printing industry, especially the part of the industry that is paper-based, have a lot of opportunities that are really exciting in the nearby future. We went to Israel to visit a company called Mibastar. When you look, they are specialized in food packaging. So when you look at for example, the bags they did was a hybrid product of paper and plastic. They actually invented a paper that is transparent and has the same features as a plastic product, but now it's 100% compostable. And this is just the start of what you see right now. And I think that the sustainability agenda, I think the industry, as an industry, should take a lead in this one, because I think we can. I think it's important, and I think we owe it to ourselves and now to future generations. And then I actually came up with one more thing that I want to add, just because I can.
There are no rules here.
And that is, it's funny to see how the COVID has changed, because everybody has been talking for a very long time about that you go from analog to digital. I think the COVID situation, not the COVID situation in itself, but because the demand of products have changed so much. So a lot of companies have actually seen opportunities as part of the digital transformation I spoke about. So they're changing production from analog to digital. And I think that if you look at the transformation from litho offset to digital, you see that in commercial print, you see that the speed, the quality, again, the sustainability agenda is so evident that must be sped even faster, that transformation process in 2022. And if you look at the equipment, if you look at the hardware out there, fantastic. And I think, again, that's yet another good opportunity for EPS, because I can't remember who I spoke to yesterday, but it doesn't really help if you have really, really fast machines, but you don't have the software fast enough to process it in order to feed the machines, right? And I think that is, I think it's a huge opportunity. And unfortunately, I believe that the companies who don't do these investments, they have a big chance of failure, to be honest. So I think now is a time to really go into that digitalization of your production equipment.
Excellent, excellent. Linda?
Well, I think you guys all know that I'm going to say you got to be the supplier that isn't the problem, because that's kind of how we started off the conversation, was just talking about these suppliers, and they're having supply chain problems as well. It is going to be extremely important, and it'd be extreme advantage just to deliver, just to be that one guy that they never have to worry about, like you can deliver. So you want to make your process as efficient as you can, because everyone's had enough unknown for the last couple years, you know? It's like, and so we've had enough unknown. We're done with it. We want some stability back here. So be that stable supplier for the brands, and the brands will remember you. And the brands will remember you, and that CMO and that brand manager will remember you as they quit their job and go work for their next company. And so you have an opportunity, a great marketing opportunity with this great resignation. We have an opportunity to have advocates, our best customers, go into other companies and become advocates for us as a supplier, introducing us to new customers. So make it as easy as freaking possible to make sure that your customers can be your hero. So arm them with anything that you can to explain why you are the vendor that's always going to come through for them. And then I would also say human downtime. So we were talking about, the labor shortage. We've also had to look at downtime a little differently. In the past 2 years, we've often looked at machine downtime, but we've really seen that humans need downtime. And I had a great conversation with a millennial, and she was explaining why she doesn't answer emails on the weekends. And she said, the generation before you guys, and it's like they only had to work to 50. And then they retired, had 10 years, they did what they want, and then it was the end of their journey. And it's like, baby boomers, Gen X folks like myself, we will probably be working 65, 70, but we probably have another 20 years to, have a further journey. And it's like a lot of the folks in her generation, they're expected to reach 100. It's the difference between a 5K and a marathon. And so we have to think about mental health, physical health in different ways. We can't borrow from our future like you guys did when it comes to our bodies and our health. And so we are taking a more measured approach. So that means that they're going to demand more downtime. And so whether it's downtime from changing priorities, and changing values, or it's downtime from a simple thing like illness. Sometimes people get sick, and we've really seen that lately. We know that we have to accommodate for human downtime. And what's the way that you accommodate for human downtime is increase the efficiency of your business through things like robotics. When I see forecasts, oh gosh, who was the one was 4% next year? I'm like, 4% for robotics? You think that only 4% growth? Like, where are you getting that number? Maybe add a 0 to that. It's like there's no way it's going to be a single-digit growth number for automation next year. So, anything that you can make your plant more efficient is going to help you down the road on so many different levels. And I definitely think robotics is not going to be the 4%. It's going to be a lot higher as far as numbers. And I think when you talked about looking at your competition and what they're doing, and it's like your competition is probably automating, and that's going to make their business being a lot more competitive when you're going out there.
Thank you, Linda. That was so spot on. Thank you very much. Tim?
Yeah, so the way I see it, companies invest typically in 2 areas, right? You either invest for efficiency, that is to do what you do now better, faster, cheaper, right? Or you invest to do something new and different, right? Things we want to bolt onto our business, we add to our services, maybe we want to increase the service levels, something like that, right? But we want to do either be better at what we already do or add additional things, right? And I have the disadvantage of going last, but really all of us are saying the same thing. Whether you invest your time and effort in improving the way you communicate and relate to your customer, right? Because you have to know what their problems are. If you don't know what their problems are, how can you solve them, right? You have to be in their kitchen and talking like, hey, how do we solve this? You have a compliance issue, you have a color management issue, you have a regulatory, like how can we solve that problem as print service providers? So you have to invest the time and money to communicate with your customers, of course, whether that's improving your web presence. And again, our research says like 97% of print service providers in the US have a web presence. 97%, right? Well, your investment should be in making sure people come to your website, right? How do you get people to transact with you that way? Because again, you might find there's amazing inefficiency with the way that perhaps it's the way like your salespeople are registering and doing estimates. And so if people are putting their own data in, you can solve some of those problems again through automation, right? It goes right down the line. If you're solving some of those communication issues, you can deal with some of your inefficiencies, and you can effectively balance your investment in time and money and in equipment, right? And what we decide what we're going to do. If your customer has a problem, we need to do hats and T-shirts now. Well, I'm not in the hat and T-shirt business, but if it's your problem, then I can be, right? So we can solve some of those things, and we have to balance those investments in time and money, and whether it's in getting better at what we do or in bolting new stuff on.
I love it. That's great. Morton, you wanted to comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to add something quite interesting. I think when you talk about websites and you talk about web presence in general, since we've been filming here, every time we made a film and publish it, we put in the contact details of the people we've been talking to. And I actually saw some pretty hefty websites, really beautiful, good print samples, everything like that. But two things struck me. There was no phone number. There was not even an email. You had to contact them through a contact form, right? And so the web presence is one thing. I don't know if America is different, but I think it's annoying not to have a phone number, just because I can then contact people at a point where I need them. Because if you send an email or you use a contact form, you never know if anybody sees it, right?
I totally agree. To me, the point of having a website is to make it look like you're always open, right? I'm ready for business anytime, right? And people want to know is like you could be working 10 o'clock at night tomorrow, or like, the event that I'm trying to service is this weekend. I need you right now, right? I need the ability to, load up my assets, place an order, perhaps without ever talking to a salesperson, but maybe I do need to talk to somebody and I need to talk to them right now. So yes, always open should be the goal.
That website was probably created by a millennial. We don't like to talk on that one.
So first of all, guys, thank you so much. You guys, really great insights, and really loved hearing your perspective. Can each of you just, as we wrap up, provide some final words of wisdom about just the digital printing, and obviously the audience here, there's a lot of interest in diversifying their offerings and so on, as we wrap up. So we'll start with you, Tim, and we'll end with you, Adrian.
Yeah, so again, I would just reiterate what I was just saying about that it's super important to just take the time and effort to communicate with customers and go on visits with your sales force and spend time trying to help them identify and solve their problems, right? Because in many cases they just might not know that you do something, and you can't assume, that I've been telling you for months that we do T-shirt printing, but that's not their job to know that. That's your job to make sure they know that, right? So it's just super important to get out there and communicate with customers and find out what they're hoping. Everyone, the expression is like, you want to skate to where the puck is going, right?
Yeah.
Figure out what they're trying to do, whether it's grow their business, or like I said, they may have any number of business objectives. You can help them get there and just show them how you do it.
I love it. Linda?
And I'm going to start off by building on what you said, Tim, because it's so important. A lot of times when you're talking to marketers or brand managers, they'll often say, like, people will come with a consultative approach, and their idea of a consultative approach is to bring me ideas, which does work out sometimes, and it's great. But a lot of times it's just coming in and asking, you know, your existing customer, hey, you know, this is an existing customer that maybe you identified has some capability to expand their print business. Like, what have you been charged with? Because these are individuals as well as businesses. And so a CMO gets charged, you know, CMO has a boss, has a review, has to report to people. You know, just because they're in the C-suite doesn't mean they don't have to report to people. You go to the C-suite, you have to report to a lot of people. And so they've got goals that you may not be able to see from the corporate report. And if you go in there and you ask them, like, okay, what is your problem? And then ask them how, and then you know, how do you think I could help you? And you might be surprised by the answer. So instead of coming to them and talking to them, really spend more time listening, and you'll be a lot better off. And then, of course, be that supplier they can always count on.
Morton?
I agree, of course, right? But I don't know about you guys, but when I watch a YouTube film, the first thing I try to do is skip the ad word. And we are in a visual communication industry where we, to some extent, live of providing some kind of marketing communication to drive traffic and drive business, basically, right? So what I would think could be a valuable thing to consider in the future when you talk to your customer is relevance. And right distribution, you know, the good virtues of being beautiful. Those kind of things, because if people basically want to avoid advertising and commercial messaging, we have to be sure that the customers that get our support to do things get something that is relevant to the audience that they are approaching. And there's a lot of noise in the world. Just to give you a little example, the difference from being a European and coming here. If you go in this hotel, you hear music everywhere. Even if you go outside in the street, you hear music everywhere, right? Yeah. And I'm a big fan of music, but I'm also a big fan of silence. I think the contrast is so fantastic. And that
You're in the wrong city.
Sorry?
You're in the wrong city.
Yeah, so I'm just saying that I think that balance between silence and noise will emphasize the message we're giving if we even help our customers having that approach as well.
Wonderful. Adrian?
Yeah, I think just looking into the next year and just ways to grow your business, I mean, just have a growth mindset and just be willing to come to events like these and be willing to learn, consider new applications, find a mentor in the industry. Even if you wanted to look at our editorial advisory board and find someone that aligns with your goals and your values, and then reach out to them, or you can ask me and I can connect you with them. Constantly be wanting to learn and educate yourself on new technology, and I think these events like this, you know, that's giving you that opportunity to learn and grow, but constantly be trying to find something new so you're not having to fight with your competitor on something.
That is great. Well, I'm glad that we did this year, you know, talking to the experts. Thank you so much for spending your morning with us and sharing your insights.
Thanks for having us.
We appreciate it. Thank you.